Indlu yabaHoli boMdabu isinxuse uhulumeni ukuthi akubeke eqhulwini ukuphepha nokuvikelwa kwabaholi boMdabu. Lokhu kuza ngemuva kokubulawa ngesihluku kwenkosi uSiphamandla Khumalo nowakwakhe e-Utrecht enyakatho nesifundazwe saKwaZulu-Natal. In September last year, 75-year-old Doctor Dumisani Khumalo, a leader of oSuthu Royal Council in Nongoma, was brutally killed at the gate of his home. The regent of the Qiniselani Traditional Council, is still missing after being kidnapped from his Izindlu home on the south coast in 2021. Ngokwezibalo umbukeli zibalelwa ngaphezu kwezinkulungwane ezimbili namakhulu amabili namashumi amabili nesishiyagalolunye 2,229 induna esifundazweni, kanti futhi babalelwe ngaphezu kwamashumi amahlanu 50 abaholi boMdabu asebehlaselwe babulawa eminyakeni emine edlule esifundazweni saKwaZulu-Natal. Mbukeni ohlelweni namhlanje sibuza ukuthi, what is behind the killing of traditional leaders? Is government doing enough to protect Abaholi Bendabuko? Where is the 11.5 million to protect Abaholi Bendabuko? Le eminye imibuzo sobe siyidingida namhlanje nezihambeli zethu ohlelweni mbukeli. Sikhumbuze ke mbukeli ukuthi ningaba ingxenye yalolu hlelo ngokushayela ucingo sizwe umbono noma umbuzo wakho. Inombolo zethu zocingo 0117140677 noma 0117140678. Kanti ungabuye mbukeli usithole futhi emakhasini ethu okuxhumana ku-Twitter @SABC Izindaba kanye na ku-Facebook SABC Izindaba. Ukuze kubelula ke mbukeli sicela uqale ngo#Asikhulume #SABC News bese ke ubhala umbuzo noma umbono wakho. Asikhulume. Mbukela ukubulawa kwabaholi bendabuko sekubeke kwagqama ukwehluleka kuhulumeni ukuvikela amakhosi kanye nabanye abaholi boMdabu. Ngonhlolanja nje kwabulawa abaholi bendabuko ababili, kwathi oyedwa wasinda ngesikhathi behlaselwa. Mbukeli yini engenziwa ukuthi kunqandwe lesi sihlava? Intatheli yethu uLindokuhle Simelane usihlanganisele na umbiko.
Ngokwezibalo sekubulawa abaholi bendabuko ababalelwa ngaphezulu kwamashumi amahlanu eminyakeni emine edlule esifundazweni saKwaZulu-Natal. Inkosi uSiphamandla Khumalo nowakwakhe Indlovukazi uMadlamini Khumalo sebephenduka izisulu zakamuva zokubulawa kwabaholi boMdabu esifundazweni.
Ubuhlungu esibuzwayo namhlanje nobenzakayo lapha emantongweni asifisa ukuthi ke ezinye izindlu zamakhosi namanye amakhosi okuzivelele thina kuwavelele nawo ngoba kubuhlungu kakhulu.
Inkosi uKhumalo yasinda ngokulambisa ngesikhathi bezama ukuyibulala ngonyaka odlule. Abaholi bendabuko bevelokhu becela uhulumeni ukuthi asheshise ukuvikeleka kwabo.
Kusikhathaza kakhulu ke ukuthi sikhona singamakhosi, uhulumeni akalibambi iqhaza elifanelekile lokuthi sibonakale siphephile, ngoba sazi ukuthi kusasa kuzobe kuyiphi inkosi. Sinxusa lokho ke ekutheni uhulumeni ayaphakamisa amasokisi impela kuphela isikhathi sokuthi akhulume ngomlomo nje kuphela, kodwa sesifuna ukuthi simbonenza.
Sake samuzwa ke nohulumeni ethi uzongenelela alekelele kwaze kwagagulwa nezimali ezikhona ezibekiwe, kodwa ke sinasiqiniseko sokuthi kukuphi la kubambeke khona.
Izakhamuzi zasemxhakeni nezasezimbuthu ngaphansi kwesizwe samantungu traditional clan ebesiholwa uKhumalo simshayele ihlombi lomholi ngeqhaza alidlalile ukugqugquzela ukuthuthukisa kwezindawo zasemakhaya.
Inkosi ibumuntu oright ebantwini baye endaweni bibaphethe kahle.
Ngokuzalwa la eNyukasela kodwa indawo beyingatholakala yonke indawo, kodwa ngafika la ngazoyithola enkosini uKhumalo.
Mbukeli asibonge umbiko wentatheli yethu Lindokuhle Simelane. Samukele ihambeli zethu Deputy Minister weKhokta uPrince Zolile Burns Ncamashe nongusekela sihlalo we-National House of Traditional Leaders Inkosi uLangamavuso. Siphinde sibe no Dokotela uChris Mabasa, former brigadier and former provincial head for detectives in Limpopo, currently director of Bahlengwe Forensic Cyber Investigation in South Africa, and he will join us a little bit later on for this discussion. Asiqale nje ngokuthi sikhulume nawe Deputy Minister, sikubonga kakhulu ukuthi ube nathi in studio today. Sikhulume nje ngokuthi kini manibheka nohulumeni ukubulawa kwamakhosi ngoba nawe ukhona phakathi lapho uyezwa ukuthi kwenzakalani kahle kahle.
Well, let me start by saying as government we are saddened by this trend, which seems to define the narrative, where there's a spate of gruesome and heinous killings and assassinations of traditional leaders at all levels. More specifically in KZN, it's a real concern that there are people who allow themselves to be used, whether by being paid to execute these killings. Because killing a traditional leader, it means you are killing the tribe. And you just ask yourself, ukuphi unembeza, uma sobulala inkosi. And what is so sad is that whether you go to Eastern Cape, you go to Limpopo, you go to Western Cape, whenever there's an incident where Inkabi are alleged to have executed, there's a trend, they always come from KZN. And you ask yourself, Ngoba, if His Majesty the King has spoken, if you can't even listen to the King, who else would you listen to? So in this case, it really worries us and it concerns us that traditional leaders, especially in KZN, they live like birds, always worried about what is going to happen tomorrow.
And I'm going to come back to that to see then a little later on how do we begin to make sure they don't live like birds. They really are protected. Ngizothanda ukuthi Nkosi Mavuso ngibhekise kuwena lo mbuzo ukuthi njengoba nibuka kwenzeka lesi sihlava amakhosi abulawa ngalendlela ebuhlungu kangaka, kwenzakalani? Bathina abantu, yini abayibonayo iyimbangela yalokho?
What I can say is that traditional leaders are public office bearers. Whatever that is due to councillors, members of parliament, ministers and all that is due to traditional leaders too. For instance, let's make an example about the killing in Newcastle. It has been known by authorities that there's a price for the head of Nkosi Yamandu. And the state has failed to protect him until he was killed. And there have been a number of other deaths that have been happening. We've been requesting government to provide security to the kings, to the chairperson of the National House and deputy, to provincial houses. But up to now, there's nothing that there's not been a shift from government to say.
What are they saying? What are they saying? Pardon me. What are they saying are some of the reasons for this not happening?
There's no policy in place. There's no policy in place to protect traditional leaders.
All right, I'm going to come back and I would like Deputy Minister to respond to that, you know, just to understand exactly what's going on here. But Dr. Mabasa, one of the things that we are seeing here and hearing a lot about is the fact that security does seem to be a huge issue here. Is that the only issue?
According to me, yes, I can say that security it is the only issue, because when we go to the police, they don't have the human resource, I mean the manpower. But according to me, as we have already noticed that there is a trend of killing of the chiefs around the country, I will advise to the government to the next recruitment to calculate or to make the audit skills of all the chiefs in the country, so that they can at least train the specific police, those who will be, at least be posted to the chiefs and be the protection of the chiefs for the entire life. I will give you an example. To the former Gazankulu police, those chiefs, they were at least having the armor ranger. Those who were always used to be at the tribal, those who were always used to be after the chiefs. When you go to the chiefs, they will say that so even now, we want to see our chiefs to be protected by the South African Police Service, like the councillors in the parliament. I thank you.
Okay, I'm going to come back to this after the break as we talk about where then does the money lie now? Because we did see a fund that was set to be, its money set aside in order to protect the traditional leaders. Where is it? Because now we're hearing about issues of security. There's no policy. What happens then, Mbugeli, ukuthi amakhosi avikeleke ngoba siyazi ukuthi they're now living like birds, fearing for their lives. Kodwa sokhuluma ngalokho Mbugeli, masibuye ekhefini. Mbukele siqhubeke nengxoxo yethu namhlanje sikhuluma ngokubulawa kwamakhosi isihluku esesibona senziwa eMzantsi Afrika kodwa senza kanjani ukuthi konke lokhu kuphela sike sabona imali ibekwa kuthiwa izobukelela isecurity yamakhosi iphi leyo mali nakho siyezwa that there's no policy. So how do we begin to navigate these particular terrains? Deputy Minister, uzwile kuthiwa kukhalwa kakhulu ngesecurity, kukhalwa kakhulu ngemali okumele ibekwe eceleni ukuthi amakhosi avikeleke. Iphi leyo mali esasiyibona kuthiwa ikhona, that fund?
Maybe let me start by this specific case of uNkosi Khumalo and uNdlunkulu. I just want to assure the South Africans and the Mdungwa family and the tribe that indeed there's a team of police from the serious crime who have been assembled to look specifically on this case of Nkosi Khumalo, and they are following every lead. The assurance we received is that they will leave no stone unturned, irrespective of whether you are far or close to the family. Everyone and anyone who has a question to answer, all those are currently being processed. And we're quite confident that the caliber of those who have been assigned, they are experienced, and we hope that there will be a breakthrough so that we are able to put a stop in this debate. But we must also acknowledge the fact that there's a multiplicity of variables that are at play, from issues of succession, family feuds, business-related. Sometimes you find that it's tax-related. And so there are a number of variables that are being looked at. However, when I engaged, because I've engaged both the National Prosecution Authority as well as the South African Police Service to make sure that, as Nkosi Mavuso was saying, there has to be action.
And what about, pardon me for coming in there, we don't have a lot of time, but what about the issue of security? But Nkosi Mavuso, before I go back to him, is raising a very important point about insecurity and policy that is needed for Amakhosi.
I can confirm that in my capacity as the Deputy Minister responsible for traditional affairs, I have written a letter which will be delivered to the National Commissioner copied to the National Minister of Police, my minister, as well as the Deputy Minister of Police, so that we are able to move with a sense of agility, move with a sense of speed in ensuring that we reinforce what is already there, because there is what is called traditional policing system, which when it was launched, it was only at the level of the kings. And the objective was to roll it out to make sure that even at the level of senior traditional leaders, there would be police who are assigned there. More so that now we have the Traditional Courts Act, which will necessitate human resource like your court orderly and so on. So it is a process that, looking at it from a multiplicity of other institutions like justice and so on, that will really expedite the...
Nkosi Mavuso, does this make it better for you?
No, it doesn't. Because we don't know tomorrow, there might be a traditional leader that has been gunned down. Because we've been requesting protection services to our kings, people that are holding positions within the institutions of government. To date, there's no policy. Recently, beginning of this year, we met with the Deputy Minister of Police, and he made it clear to us that there's no policy that says he must protect traditional leaders.
So the fact that the Deputy Minister has written, does that make it better for you to see movement, or would you like to see a bit more action?
I want actions. No, one action is the institution on this matter. Because it has been on the table for quite some time. And unfortunately, we lose lives whilst we are delaying in coming up with a solution to this problem.
Nkosi Mavuso, I'm going to ask you a very direct question. Do you feel safe?
No.
Tell me more.
I'm not feeling safe. There are decisions that we take in the offices that we occupy. Some are unpopular to our peers. Some are popular. And if then I'll be given a position like the Deputy Chairperson of the National House, and I'm being given a driver to drive me who has never been trained on protecting a Deputy Chairperson, who has never been in advanced driving, who does not even have a firearm to protect me when the need arises. So I feel I am not safe. But the National House of Traditional Leaders has failed to protect me as its deputy. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the situation across the country, and including other kings. For instance, we learned that the Royal Protection Unit that was in the KZN was disbanded. So we are not safe.
All right. I'm going to ask just after the break to, as we round up the show, then look at the solutions. What becomes the solutions? As the Deputy Minister is saying, he's written and he's hoping that things will be fast-tracked in this regard. But in the meantime, what becomes some of the things that are being done to actually deal directly with what you've just raised? Deputy Minister, when we come back from the break, as to how to allay these fears. Siyambongela Sesiphetha, ake sibheke ukuthi ngabe the interventions that government has are enough and what can be done to bring an end to these senseless and merciless killings sahleli nazo ihambeli zethu. Ngizoqala ngawe Dr. Mabasa ngoba we've lost you quite a bit, and I would like for you, just as we end off the show briefly, give us a sense from your end what becomes the solution.
From my side, or from my opinion, the solution is only that the government let them train a special police, those who will at least be deployed to all the chiefs and all the kings in South Africa. That is my advice to the country.
Nkosi Mavuso?
Since Prince Namash took over as a deputy minister, we are hoping and excited that he's part of us as a traditional leader. He knows, even in his DNA, runs traditional leadership. At least there will be a solution to these problems as soon as possible. But we don't know who will be killed tomorrow or this evening or this afternoon.
All right. It seems a lot is riding on you, Deputy Minister. As you know, you've said you've written the letter, but it does look like now, because you carry it in your DNA, it's supposed to be fixed as soon as possible.
Yes, of course. Well, in my other capacity as the spokesperson and advisor to the late His Majesty, the King of Amakhabe, the late Queen, and the current King, together with Nkosi Mavuso, because we're from the Khakhabe Kingdom, we played a major role to make sure that the protection services for His Majesty was kept alive up until he departed Mother Earth, including the Queen, as well as the current King. So when we talk about security, we talk about something that we have intimate relationship with. We know the difficulties, we know the hardships, and that's why I have taken it upon myself to write a letter to the National Commissioner after our telephonic conversation. And I can assure that we will make a follow-up. As we say, we take this matter very seriously, including the Deputy President of the country, by the way. He is very concerned about this, and he has expressed his posture on the matter, and that this matter must be expedited. We must speed up the execution. That's how DP explains it. And though I know the situation is not at a pace at which I would have loved, but obviously I want to assure traditional leaders that we are going to take decisive steps on the matter. I am in consultation with Deputy Minister Matale. Almost every day we talk about this. We will eventually come up with something that will ultimately bring this to a level where traditional leaders are safe in their spaces.
And Dr. Mabasa, I'm going to give you the final word here very briefly. In about, you know, especially when you look at the fact that right now there's still these processes that the minister is explaining, and an absence of policy and all of that. And Nkosi Mavuso talking about how he feels he's not safe. So things must be done right now in order to make sure that they also feel safe. What are some of the easy wins that can be implemented right now, even in the absence of policy, to make sure that traditional leaders are safe?
On the absence of the police, I can recommend that let the government make sure that they deploy the private protection, I mean the private security to the different chiefs until they reach the stage of deploying the South African Police Service, because I know and understand that in the South African Police Service currently, they don't have the human resource. They can go out for tender and go and get some security to protect the chiefs. That is my opinion. Until we come to the stage of having the full-fledged police, those who will after our chiefs.
And listening to all of you, it is very clear that there needs to be another layer to this conversation. One, it's a layer of looking specifically as well at what's happening in KZN, as you've raised, Deputy Minister, and also this issue in Kabi again rearing its ugly head. At the same time, it does look like we need a follow-up with the police as well to understand from their vantage point what are they doing to ensure that the traditional leaders are safe. Mbukeli akasibonge nje ukuthi nibe nathi ohlelweni namhlanje nihlanganyele kanye nathi ku-Asikhulume. Sithembe ukuthi ingxoxo izoqhubeka einkundleni zethu zokuxhumana. Mina ukwaKhumalo wakwazwane nezihambeli zethu uDeputy Minister weKhokta uPrince Zolile Burns Ncamashe kanye nosekela sihlalo we-National House of Traditional Leaders inkosi uLanga Mavuso. Siphinde saba no-Dr. Chris Mabasa, former brigadier and former provincial head for detective in Limpopo, currently the director of Bahlengwe Forensic Cyber Investigations in South Africa. Ingxoxo iqhubeke emakhasini ethu okuxhumana mbukeli. Mina nethemba le-Asikhulume sithi ayixabene.